Okay, is everybody here?
You can do it. We can do it. I'm gonna mute myself now.
Do you guys see Aurora on here? So I see Demi, and V.
I do not see Aurora.
Okay, let me check in with her real quick.
Miss Joywala?
Yes, sorry.
How do you pronounce your first name?
Mahi?
Okay, cool. Just checking.
Hey, you got the last name right. Good job.
Nice.
Still trying to get Aurora in the right place. She's online. I just don't know if she's in the right place, like the right channel. So.
Do you see
She's the last one we're waiting for, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Good. Good job. All I need is face cam. Bari's face cam needs to be enabled, and you guys should be good.
Okay, Aurora, whenever you're ready to show. Awesome. Okay. All right, guys. Everybody give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay. Good morning or good evening to all participants and viewers. It's my pleasure to welcome you to DYKB's Youth Debate Team's March Debate. My name is Gia Spencer, and I will be the moderator for today. Our stand today consists of Team A and Team B. Please say hi and wave to the camera as your name is called, just so we can do a little test, a little mic test and a little video test whenever I call your name. So, Team A is Zumi Frankowski.
Hi.
Aurora Porter. And V Tang.
Oh, sorry, I'm just having a little connection issues.
That's fine. And Team B with Adwembi Barakat. Carly Bonsasa.
Hello.
And Mahi Jariwala.
Hello.
Beautiful. Okay. This debate will be ran per the layout of Team A's 8-minute introduction, Team B's 3-minute cross-examination, and 3-minute critique speech. I have a cat in here, so if the cat comes to the camera, this is just fair warning. 3-minute critique speech, Team B introduction, their 8-minute introduction, Team A 3-minute cross-examination and 3.5-minute critique speech. Then starting with Team B, each side will give a 1-minute summary speech, which will be followed by a 2-minute simultaneous crossfire. We will then continue with Team A's 4-minute rebuttal, then Team B's 4-minute rebuttal, and finish with a 1-minute summary speech by first Team B, then Team A, summing up the entirety of the debate and restating the solution and reasoning. Though I expect everyone to have read this debate's rules and regulations, I want to stress our ground rules. 1, all team members must remain respectful to all other members and maintain professionalism throughout the debate. 2, team members will not bully or degrade one another or use inappropriate language during the debate. And 3, team members are disallowed from using their cell phone devices during the debate. On this note, I will ask that every participant remain in sight of the camera with their video on at all times and to remain on mute until it is your turn in the layout of the debate. Violators that speak out of turn will be muted respectively. I will be keeping time with a standardized stopwatch and will be giving 3-minute and 1-minute warnings for each turn. Once all participants give a thumbs up to the camera to indicate they are ready, we can begin. But before we begin, I want to make sure that everybody can see my little time warning. Oops. Is that clear? A nod. Okay, cool. Okay, once everybody gives a thumbs up, then we can start with Team A. Okay, first speaker, Megan.
Okay, you can start my time. Just after the first class of the day had started, my day was about to become one of my worst. During a disagreement with a teacher over my cell phone, school resource officers hauled me out of the classroom by grabbing me by my arms. This was terrifying, so I fought back, which led them dragging me down a flight of stairs by one leg and eventually using a taser on me 3 separate times. My father was there as he watched in horror as they punched me and threw me to the ground. Another student had caught the incident on video. The 2 SROs who did this had resigned from their position, but the physical and mental damage from this incident will last me like a lifetime. I do not feel safe at my school anymore, and I do not feel safe enough to learn. This is not my story, but this story was...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Mahi, are you having trouble hearing?
Yes, it's really unclear. Is there any way you can talk a little closer to the mic? I'm sorry.
Is it okay if I talk to someone and get headphones and I cut that would improve my audio?
Yes, that'd be
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, Aurora is now getting some headphones so we can hear her a little bit clearer. I think it's a little bit unfair of the debate if the audio isn't on par for everybody. So we're just going to take a second. I'm pausing and restarting the time so she can restart her speech. Also, I want to warn beforehand, if there's any technical difficulties, I'm going to give about a 3-minute grace period for it to get figured out. And if not, then we're going to have somebody on behalf of the person so we can continue with the flow of the debate. Okay, Aurora, whenever you are ready, you can begin.
Okay. Just after the first class of the day had started, my day was about to become one of my worst. During a disagreement with a teacher over my cell phone, school resource officers hauled me out of the classroom by grabbing me by my arms. This was terrifying, so I fought back, which led them dragging me down a flight of stairs by one leg and eventually using a taser on me 3 separate times. My father was there as he watched in horror as they punched me and pinned me to the ground. Another student had caught the incident on video, and the 2 SROs who did this to me resigned from their position. But the physical and mental damage from this incident will likely last me a lifetime. I do not feel safe in my school anymore, and I do not feel safe enough to learn. This is not my story, but the story of a 16-year-old Enigma Howard who was a student at John Marshall Metropolitan High School in Chicago. She had an individualized education plan, an IEP, to address specific needs because of her learning disability. This was not her first incident with behavioral issues in class, but the excessive force utilized by SROs in her school was completely unwarranted and unnecessary. A pattern we see throughout the U.S. follows the idea that young adults that come from disadvantaged backgrounds are incarcerated after or during their school years, giving them no hope to succeed to higher education or work. This is known as the school-to-prison pipeline. The school-to-prison pipeline is not only an issue with Chicago, but the smaller communities within itself. Graduation rates in Chicago minority youth are disproportionately lower than those who are white. Among 19 to 24-year-olds in Chicago, 15% don't have a regular high school diploma, as well as 30% of Hispanic males, 20% of African American males, and only 4% of white males have a regular high school diploma. The head of CPS, Janet Jackson, commented on the graduation rates in the Chicago youth. I like the incremental growth, but we need to see exponential growth, particularly among the African American male and Latino male students, if we're going to meet the goals were outlined in our vision, end quote. Black students are only disproportionately involved in school-based arrests. Although they make up 45% of student population, 75.5% of the school-based arrests are of Black students. The suspension rate is also 5 times higher than those students who are white. Minorities in the Chicago public school system are being treated completely different to warrant the idea that the relationships with the school are damaged and reform is needed. In a survey completed in 2017 with 5th to 12th graders, 40% of African American students who took the survey said they don't feel safe in the presence of police on campus. Although with the fact that 90% of high schools in the U.S. have officers, it begs the question of why do we have these officers? And how should we change our relationship with them so that our students feel safe? Mayor Lightfoot, to make improvements to CPS, in order to change this problem of the school to prison pipeline, made an improvement plan. Parts of this plan included making principals more active in interviewing SROs, taking all complaints of the officers directly to the Civilian Office of Accountability, making the district meet with Chicago police every 2 weeks to ensure compliance with reforms, and finally surveying school communities for their input. This plan was made and acted on 3 months ago, but there has been no significant change in the trend of excessive force disproportionately directed towards students of color. Even after these reform policies, Darian Smith, who's the superintendent of one of the schools of the district, said, and I quote, "It's a step, but to me it's not enough. I think it's not enough because we don't need thousands of changes to SROs. We need social workers who can talk to us on an everyday basis and lessen the number of officers on campus," end quote. Furthermore, making these never-ending changes and reforms costs the school even more money added on to their previous $12 million contract, which ultimately hurts the students' ability to learn. So both these problems can be ended with a reallocation of funds. State government relentlessly encouraged schools to station police officers. Now, there is an option for schools to refuse, but a lot of pressure from local government and other school districts force reluctant schools to join in on excessively funding SROs. For example, most contracts between schools and SROs pay for health benefits and other resources not included in the school involvement, like cop cars or cones, meaning there's plenty of leeway for funding of mental health workers, and it gives students an opportunity to learn without the fear of police on campus. Now, this isn't to say progress hasn't been made, because it has. For example, Senate Bill 100 in Illinois, led by the DYKB, has been passed for the general education to use other measures of disciplining students and consider suspensions and expulsions as a last resort. Small steps have been taken with that, but it's time for a bigger step on a larger scale implementation to addressing the City of Chicago school to prison pipeline issues. Our team proposes that we follow the West Virginia bill introduced on February 21st, 2020, to start a behavior interventionist program. This program will have long-term benefits as it hires and trains personnel who specialize in addressing students with behavior issues. This will also create jobs in the economy as more behavior interventionists will reduce the unemployment, considering that the unemployment rate is very high during our pandemic. As mentioned earlier, the high rates of youths dropping out of school and the graduation rates dropping low in Chicago, investing in these types of personnel would help increase both of these. Just increase the graduation rates. Behavior interventionists can assist teachers with behavioral issues in class so that it doesn't take time from other students, therefore increasing academic achievement. And not only will the particular student have an insurance of safety, but with a good relationship between staff and students, insurance of safety, but with a good relationship between staff and students, the chance of students committing a crime are way less. According to the Review of Education Research Analysis, found that a strong student-teacher relationship are associated with improvements in higher school student academic engagement, attendance, grades, fewer disruptive behaviors, and suspensions. In conclusion, these personnel will be clinical to disrupt the flow of school to prison pipeline, as they are professionally and develop a good relationship with students. So people are continuously complaining about the crime rates in Chicago, and by carrying out this project, we can seriously prevent crime. Most people who committed crimes are not malicious people. No, instead, they're victims. These people were once victim of the school to prison pipeline. They're victim of their state government due to the failure to prioritize posterity needs. I find it incredibly disturbing that in 2020, the city of Chicago is willing to pay police in schools $150,000 per police officer, according to NPR, while school teachers and counselors earn half the wages these officers do. $150,000 is absurd, and the fact that the city of Chicago is willing to pay over half of a teacher's pay grade proves that its lack of commitment to invest in the students' mental health. To lower crimes and incarceration and failure, we must take a step and fix the issues of the school-to-prison pipeline. This should be the expectation in schools, not the exception. Now, I do understand the importance of police in our schools for safety, but removal of police in schools would be less of a burden on students, as many of them would feel less intimidated if perhaps replaced by someone like a social worker or a behavior interventionist. However, this is not to say police cannot be a solution to this problem. Instead of being on campus, police would be on call patrolling neighborhoods within the vicinity of the school in case of an emergency. They'll be contacted, and since they're only permitted half a mile away, they can react quickly, also needing permission from staff to step on campus. Also, the police and the schools would adopt a memorandum of an understanding where the school will acknowledge the police intervention and will be the last resort in a situation that will make sure that students' rights are protected in the situation. To summarize, the city of Chicago needs to realize the benefits that are outlined in the solution as a benefit in the long term, as behavior interventionists would likely supplement a good and positive relationship in schools, which will ultimately not need the use of police as a means of disciplining students. In addition, the MOU would set a contract in place to protect students' rights and a plan to ensure their rehabilitation rather than imprisoning students. These are the steps of our team's resolution that we can take to greatly disrupt the school-to-prison pipeline. And I'm done.
Okay, Team B can now begin their cross-examination.
Okay.
Speak, I will start the time.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So, can you please expand on the Senate bill that you stated that was implemented in West Virginia?
Yeah, let me find it. You can continue with your next question while I find that.
Okay. And then, so you're talking about minority graduation rates are lower. So why do you think race has an impact on why people graduate or not?
You mean the rates of like incarceration of students?
Yeah.
Well, I think that obviously if there are less students and more are incarcerated, then less people will be able to graduate.
So what does, I'm just curious, like what does race have to do?
Well, race, obviously, police have more of a bias, and that's why we see a lot more, not just in schools, but a lot more people of color are arrested just because of the color of their skin. And with your previous question, when I said we proposed the West Virginia bill, it means that one was introduced on February 21st of 2020, and it was to start a behavior interventionist program, which means to hire more people that, like more social workers to help students in schools.
And is that a federal or state level bill?
It's a state level bill within Chicago.
Okay, and is it within Chicago or is it within West Virginia?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I misspoke. You're right. It is in West Virginia. Sorry, I misread that.
So how can you confirm that it will be implemented in Chicago?
Well, that is our resolution. We want to follow the same program. It doesn't mean exactly passing this bill in Chicago as well, because we know that's a long legislative process, but we can still use these policies in order to help students.
Okay, so you stated that you would have police staying in the neighboring areas 0.5 miles away. If there is an accident on campus, how can people wait for the police to come? Wouldn't kids feel more safe that if there is something going on, that the police would be right there at school?
I would actually say that they feel less safe with police actually on campus, but having them within this radius, if there is an emergency needing them, they can be they can't be there like exactly on time, but they can be there very quickly to resort to help the situation.
Okay, and so you talked about how would increasing graduation rate help regulate the school to prison pipeline?
That's an effect of our resolution. So if the school to prison pipeline causes less people to graduate and causes more people to be incarcerated, so if we have, using our resolution, more people will be able to graduate and have a better school education.
Okay, do you have any statistics that support that claim?
Let me look for a second.
And time.
Thank you.
Team B now may begin their 3-minute critique speech.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Sasa. Thank you everybody for coming and viewing this debate. I will now continue with my critique speech. First of all, my opponents have stated how that the police officers cause uncomfort within students or cause them to feel not safe, which is the opposite of what they should be doing. Only officers are placed there for the safety of students, considering the rates of how students, there could be crimes committed within the school and how students will be affected by that, and how the school can be affected by that, and the rate of how much money is produced and how much money is going to be spent on fixing anything that may happen there. Police officers are placed there in order to help that kind of situation or help situations that include that. My opponents also stated that the graduation rates are lower in Chicago due to the school to prison pipeline, but there is no statistics placed behind that or evidence placed behind that to back up that statement. They also said that there is different treatment, but there is also no evidence, solid evidence or statistics to back up that information either. Plus, they also stated, they said IAPE did not address her disabilities in the first part of their introduction speech. Also, was there also any survey or specific place that they had gotten the evidence from, and who were the people who had put information and who had backed up what their statements are, who was able to write these articles in order where they got the information from, and were they solid or were they proven to be hardcore evidence? Minorities are not disproportionately at disadvantage, excuse me. Police cannot help anything if there is less police in schools as well. Also, considering the fact that they are also 0.5 miles away, they can't help immediately if they have to go a long way in order to get to the school to help students or to help help the entire school. That'll be it. Thank you.
Okay, Team B can now begin their introduction speech.
Yeah, we can. Or Barney, it might be best if you just keep your camera off because then it will like use less of your bandwidth. Yeah, we can hear you. We hear you, Barney.
Okay. Okay, here. I think we can all hear her fine. Okay, continue whenever you are ready, Barry. You can continue from where you stopped. I have the time stopped.
The status quo reflects ineffective zero-tolerance policies. According to Voice, in the year 2011, July, for the past 20 years, CPS has pursued a zero-tolerance approach, which operates by sending a message that certain behaviors will not be tolerated by punishing all offenses severely, no matter how minor. It is important to note that an official endorsement of zero tolerance was removed from the CPS Student Code of Conduct in 2006, and the use of restorative justice practices is now encouraged. However, a lack of adequate resources for the transition to restorative justice and a failure to provide strong limits on the use of suspensions, expulsions, and arrests have resulted in a district-level approach to discipline policy, particularly uneven at best, and at worst, still looks very much like zero tolerance. Research shows that a zero tolerance approach actively harms the development of positive learning environments by damaging student-teacher relationships, increasing student fear of violence, and ushering younger and younger students into the criminal justice system. Subpoint B. CPS historically spends excess money on law enforcement officers within schools. According to Voice again, in the year 2011, July, despite the evidence suggesting that zero tolerance does not make schools safer or improve student achievement, CPS continues to spend tens of millions of dollars every year on enforcement and administration of a code of conduct based on zero tolerance principles. For example, in 2011 alone, CPS spent $67 million on Office of Safety and Security, a figure that doesn't even include school-level spending on security. Subpoint C. Link arguments. Quality of education impacts school-to-prison pipeline. According to Batcher Hicks, Andrew from Harvard Kennedy School, David J. Deming, also from Harvard Kennedy School, Stephen B. Billings, in 2019 September. Early school experiences are important predictors of future criminal behavior. School attendance reduces subsequent criminal activity, as does enrolling in a higher quality school and being exposed to more advantaged peers. Schools with strict disciplinary policies, such as zero tolerance, may expose students to the criminal justice system at a young age. There's a positive correlation between being suspended in school and later life engagements with the criminal justice system. Students who are assigned to the stricter schools are measured by conditional suspension rates and are significantly more likely to be suspended in the 2002 to 2003 school year. Even though school effects are estimated using data from before the redrawing of school boundaries, when student body composition was much different. Our findings imply that a one standard deviation increase in conditional suspension rates increases the actual number of days suspended per school year by about 16%. We then estimate the relationship between conditional suspended rates and measures of educational achievement, attainment, and subsequent criminal activity. We find that schools with greater suspension effects have negative impact on student outcomes. Students assigned to middle schools that are one standard deviation stricter are 1.7 percentage points more likely to drop out of school, a 15% increase, and 2.5 percentage points less likely to attend a four-year college, an 11% decrease. Harms. Academic achievements are not satisfactory. According to Dow Joshua, in the year 2014, Director of Educational Reform, a majority of students attending the lowest 10% of elementary schools and high schools in Chicago don't have basic competence in reading, science, and math. They're significantly behind their peers in almost every respect, and success in schools is a direct link to success later in life with more steady employment, greater wages, and higher self-confidence. Things are even more worse at the city's lowest performing high schools. Half of more than 5,000 students attending this school scored in the lowest category on a state exam in math, meaning they can only do basic addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division problems. Chronic absenteeism, chronic truancy. Students at this schools are absent from schools and drop by
Sorry, excuse me, I'm gonna stop you real quick.
rate average population. 8% community from 10% the estimate.
Excuse me, Barry. Is it just me, or was her audio cutting out?
It was cutting out, but but she's right where she said chronic absenteeism, like that's when it cut out. So I can just finish that quickly if you guys want.
I also paused the time, so I'm gonna wait for her to respond with her audio working.
Being heard now?
One more time?
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so from where I stopped or from where you heard? Okay, sorry. I'm gonna have to put off my thank you. Chronic absenteeism, chronic truancy. Students at these schools are also absent from school and drop out at much higher rates than the average CPS population. 38% of students at Chicago's lowest performing elementary schools are considered chronically truant. Chronically truant students are 10 to 30% more likely than their peers to fail at least one of the three subject matter tests embedded in the Illinois Standard Achievement Test, which measures whether a student is at grade level. We affirm the resolution that the governing body of Chicago must regulate any action that reduces the school to prison pipeline through the means of implementing restorative justice. Subpoint A, restorative justice works. David B. Wilson, PhD, Ajima Alajere, Catherine S. Kimbrell, promising findings were seen for many of the non-delinquency outcomes for that youth. Although some uncertainty remains about these outcomes, given the small number of studies and variability across studies. Still, youth participating in youth justice programs had a greater perception of fairness. The results also suggest that restorative justice youths are more satisfied with the restorative justice programs and have somewhat less supportive attitudes towards delinquency. Similarly, victims reported improved perception in fairness, greater satisfaction, improved attitudes towards the juvenile, and are more willing to forgive the offender and are more likely to feel that the outcome was just. I throw schools are ending contract with cops, but that's not enough. according to White Rose School's ending contract records, but that's not enough. August 17, 2020. Alternative Inc. is a Chicago-based organization that offers restorative justice training for Chicago public schools. These trainings help schools address conflicts using peace circles, and it works. In 2019, schools where Alternative Inc.'s coaches trained staffs and students in restorative justice experienced a 31% drop in rates of misconduct, a 50% drop in out-of-school suspensions, and a 43.8% reduction in severe incident reports. Additionally, the communication and self-reflection skills that students develop through peace circles help them become healthier adults. A plan proposes to stress the importance of restorative justice to LSCs for this debate. Being that local school councils are governing body members of Chicago education system, we can ask this foundation to align more budgetary allocations towards restorative justice practices. According to local CPS schools, there's $6.92 billion in the operating budget for all of Chicago. According to discretionary funds, even though the districts...
Okay, Barry, that is time.
Okay. I am now open for
my
questions.
physical cues, my paper cues.
Yeah, I'm now open for cross-examination.
You mentioned chronically challenged students are all in a certain school in Chicago. Are these chronically challenged students due to the school system, or are the school they go to, are they all like brought into school after low test grades are found?
I didn't get your question. Can you rephrase it?
I'll repeat it, sorry. Are chronically challenged students due to the school system, or after they are found to have low test grades, are they all brought to the same school?
Well, I personally believe it's due to the system because they do not have the motivation to go to school, partly because their grades are low, so they do not have the motivation to go to school and to continue to try to get good grades. Next question, please.
What specifically in the school system is causing them to have these low test scores and this unmotivation?
The fact that there's no teacher and bonding, like the teachers and the students don't bond, so the students are not close to the teachers, and I feel like this really affects students because when a student is not able to talk about the problems that they're having that may cause them to be chronically truant in school, then I feel like that's a problem. Also, the school system, the fact that schools have
I can't hear you. It's completely like paused.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, so I was stating that the fact that the schools have less guidance counselors and more security officers in schools, and the students do not really have the opportunity to talk to their teachers or their guidance counselors about the situations that they're going through that may be causing them to be chronically truant, then yeah. Next question, please.
You also mentioned that a zero tolerance policy will create a better bond between students and teachers. How will that create a better bond?
I did not mention that zero tolerance policy will create better bonding, teacher and student bonding time.
Okay. And you also mentioned how that the zero tolerance policy, it's not good because, you mentioned that you wouldn't want the zero tolerance policy, but how would the zero tolerance policy not being there won't it increase crime rates within the school because students believe that they can get away with more when there is no zero tolerance policy?
No, I believe that when there's no zero, when the regulations for the zero tolerance policies are reduced, I feel like students will actually get higher grades in schools because at this point they feel more comfortable in school environments and they have like a conducive school environment. And at this point, they tend to have that motivation to want to do more because everywhere is conducive for them and they tend to have better school grades. And also the zero tolerance policy.
That is time.
Thank you.
Okay, Team A, you can now continue with your 3.5 minute. 1 second, setting my timer. Okay, 3.5 minute critique speech. Begin whenever you are ready, and I'll start the time.
I request prep time. Prep time.
You're requesting prep time?
Yes.
Okay, I believe we can pull from 5 minutes of prep time. So your timer for that 5 minutes starts now and begin.
Are we allowed to use this prep time for ourselves as well? So I can go? We can like go to our own team huddle? Okay.
All right, guys. Currently, you see here that students are using prep time before giving their speeches. Every student is allocated 5 minutes of prep time before they're able to give a speech, and their timer is going off. They currently have about 4 minutes left of prep time. So stay tuned for this upcoming speech. I believe rebuttals are happening. Critique speech, actually.
Excuse me, Mr. Watson.
Yes, hello.
Hi, good morning. Do you have any questions for the debate so far?
I'm
not sure if you have any
I don't have written. Yeah, I don't have written materials, so it's
Yeah, that's my fault. So
sort of going through it from without a background. But what are the two core issues that are being debated?
Okay, so essentially there's a main resolution, and usually there's an affirmative, and then there is, the con argument. However, it looks like in this debate, they are arguing two different reforms. So it's up to you to decide which reform based on the resolution would be more effective. And let me state the resolution really quick. It says, the governing body of Chicago should fund and/or regulate any action to reduce the school to prison pipeline in Chicago public schools. So it's like maximum reduction. What can we do to eradicate this problem?
Okay, and so Team A has their proposition and Team B has their proposition. Okay.
And they should clarify, if they're giving a good speech, they should clarify their proposition exactly. And then through more cross-examination and summaries, you should be able to catch up on exactly what's going on. Correct. Let me write that down. 2 minutes, and that is team A, correct? Okay, beautiful. Whenever team A is ready for their for their critique speech. You can begin, and I will start the time.
I would like to give a critique speech. My opponent has says that 2011 CPS has removed zero tolerance, and while that zero tolerance damages the student relationship, which leads to hostile behavior, strict discipline, and would lead to suspension and positive correlation to later in life criminal justice. This would also affect the environment in schools as it will produce low scores. While I do agree with these facts, they still do not provide an obvious specific plan for students to reduce the school to prison pipeline. In the beginning of the statement, they said that they would fund and regulate to reduce school to prison pipeline, but there are still no specific plan for these students. Although you can say that you invest in restorative justices, there are a variety of restorative justices like circle, community hours, and victim assistance. So I just want to, also zero tolerance is, despite it being very controversial, I believe that it is important to not completely remove it for the sake that if students would take advantage of this, it will cause more students to just like abuse the system. And yeah, I just want to say, how would restorative justices help students? What would they benefit from this restorative justice system? And how would these also affect the teachers too? And because you have a plan, if you have a plan for students, there also has to be a plan for teachers with the school to prison pipeline, because the school to prison pipeline is not only for students, it's also for teachers who are affected by the school to prison pipeline. So you have not stated a parent plan for teachers, and I just want to say, although that you have vaguely mentioned that there is a funding for school to prison pipeline to reduce the school to prison pipeline for students, there's still no plan for teachers who are also affected by this pipeline, and also other police officers that are in campus. So that's all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
Okay, Team B can now give their 1 minute summary speech. Once you begin.
Can we take 1 minute prep time?
For Team B?
Yes. Just let me know if I can start the timer. Wait, what? Well, let's do 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Sure, that works. I'm starting the time right now.
Okay.
So once again, Team B has enacted 1 minute and 30 seconds of prep time. This will mean. So stay tuned for this upcoming speech. What are your thoughts about the debate? Share them in the comments. Do you believe that we should end SRO officers' presence in schools? Should we reform zero tolerance policies? Should we implement restorative justices? What are the solutions to reducing the school to prison pipeline in Chicago as proposed by these young scholars? Thank you.
Okay, we are back in 1 minute and 30 seconds, correct?
Right.
Okay.
You have about 3.4. That's my calculation. I'm just going to write that down because it's not too specific, but around 3.5 minutes left.
Okay.
And whenever you are
perfect.
ready to begin your 1 minute summary,
Okay, it seems as if they have not returned yet, the other team. Do we just continue? Okay.
zero tolerance bad, which we are not removing the zero tolerance policy, but we are just saying that CPS gave so much funding towards the enforcement of zero tolerance policy, and that we should amend the student code of conduct for that instead. And they also stated how that we don't have a plan for the teachers. We do, we just want to produce or show progress of training with alternatives for teachers and staff. Plus, our overall plan is to help, which is to help the school, the prison pipeline, in which they had stated that we did not have a solution for that specific issue. Thank you.
okay, Team A, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so my opponent has said that they will reduce school to prison pipeline, and they have a specific plan for teachers and students through the means of restorative justices and funding teachers for education to train them, but there's still no, there still don't provide an effect of the aftermath of what would happen to and how these would benefit these people, because you might have a plan, but you still have no there's still there's no specifics of how this will affect students. I like the effect you have a cause of the plan, but there's still no effect of what would happen if these plans were to be implemented. And there was also earlier about the confusion between Zemi's question of zero tolerance punishments, and they did not.
That is time B. Okay, we are now going to begin the tricky part when it comes to online debating. It's a 2-minute crossfire simultaneously. So please be respectful before we begin. Remember our ground rules, and whenever you are ready to start, I will begin the time.
Can I start by just addressing what you stated,
It's
like
gonna
in
go
our
into
crossfire? Or is that okay?
It's going to go into your 2-minute crossfire.
Okay, so you stated that there was no evidence. In our plan, we stated that the restorative justice training has seen a 50% drop in out-of-school suspensions and a 43.8% reduction in severe incident reports after restorative justice, which proves that our plan with using restorative justice does work. I also have a question for you guys. So what does the bill state in that in the West Virginia bill that you guys said that you guys are going to use in Illinois? How will that help regulate the school to prison pipeline? Like what explicitly is stated in that bill that will help solve our problem?
I can answer that. So the West Virginia bill is basically starts a program that has long-term benefits because it hires personnel who specialize in addressing students with behavioral issues. And as we also stated, that this program will also create more jobs for what are they called? Behavior interventionists.
Okay, and what evidence do you have that that will happen?
The evidence that we're using is that it worked in West Virginia. That's why we're using that those policies to implement in Chicago.
Okay. Do you have any specific stats that show that it helped in West Virginia? And also, how do we know that it working in West Virginia will help it in Chicago, Illinois? Sorry,
I
it's a
don't have
two-part
any,
question.
Yeah, I don't have any statistics of like how it's affecting West Virginia, but we're not exactly using the same policies. We're just using the same, I guess, idea so that we can shape it around Chicago districts and different schools to see how it can affect those students and make sure it's effective.
Thank you. And so how will you make it effective in Chicago? Like what amendments are you going to make to that specific bill?
So we said that we were going to, for the behavior interventionist, first of all, it's going to be like very tight where people are going to interview them and make sure that they're good for the job and have a good relationship with students, that they're able to have like an open communication with them, that it actually helps them. Because the point of it is that these people are supposed to substitute police officers.
Thank you, Aurora. Okay. Now, Team A, whenever you're ready for your rebuttal, your 4-minute rebuttal, you may begin.
Okay. Can we use a minute and a half of prep time, please?
And your Team A?
Yeah. Are we Team A?
No. Okay.
No. Okay. Okay. I apologize.
So Team A is going to begin. You need a minute of prep time, Team A? Okay. I'm beginning that minute right now. You may begin your 1-minute prep time. Can they hear us? Okay. I feel like this is going pretty smoothly. Is there anything, do you have any notes on this? Right. Yeah, they have. Yes, Team B is entirely on defense and not on offense, which is very interesting. Oh, Team A is on offense, not defense? Right. I feel like, yeah, definitely one team is attacking the other more than it is vice versa, which is interesting. They're pulling into their 1 minute right now. Because they have 1 minute left, and their 1 minute was already up. So, yes.
And in summary, our stuff is.
They have 30 seconds left. Okay, whenever Team A is ready to begin their 4-minute rebuttal, you must start immediately.
I'm going to begin my rebuttal time. An argument the opposing team stated was that police are being placed into schools. An argument the opposing team stated was that police are placed to schools to make students feel safe. Although just because they are implemented to make students feel safer, our research says otherwise. The research from Education Research Alliance, NOLA, says that within 5th to 12th graders, 40% of the African Americans who took the survey said they don't feel safer within the presence of police. 40% is too high for students in their classroom. Another argument made against our plan was that school experience will be more unsafe since police are not at schools. We also stated earlier that police will be in a 0.5-mile radius, meaning that police will be able to get to the schools in a very fast amount of time, and having mental health workers in place of police will also mean that violence outbreaks will be lower, so the need for police will be much lower. Lastly, the question was brought up, why does race matter in graduation rates? This is because the student-to-prison pipeline stems from high school and middle school, and more educated people leads to less crime. So if minorities are less educated, they're more likely to fall into crime, so it's important that we look to the causes and stemming from school and poverty. They also did not address their plan for police officers, and they just stated their plan for restorative justices. Continuing on the idea of having mental health workers in place of police, mental health workers are paid a much less amount than police, so we'll have the funding for that. Since in our research it says that they're paid about $150,000 a year compared to mental health workers and teachers who are paid far less, a fraction of the amount. I yield my time.
Okay, Team B, whenever you're ready, you have 4
How
minutes.
much prep time do we have? Like,
Your Team B?
yeah, we're team B. I know this time. We're team B.
Okay, you have a little bit less than 3.
Okay, so can we use our 3.5 minutes right now?
Sure, I'm gonna start a timer. Please keep your own time as well, so I don't have to
Yes.
go back
So
into your.
So it's 3 minutes and 30 seconds?
Yes, let's do 3 minutes, 30 seconds, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
I feel like this is kind of difficult because they're almost arguing the same thing. It's not a pro and con debate. And they're not really stating the differences between the reforms that they're suggesting. They did, well, they stated, so Team B is in support of restorative justice training, and Team A wants to enact the Virginia bill, the West Virginia bill. However, they sound the same to me. Yeah, they have done that. Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe at the end we can do, because I know this is like a learning experience, if we could do like a critique for both sides along with, you know, who you think had the best bill, I guess. We have 2 minutes left. I'm gonna go get some tea.
Well, currently you see that Team B has somehow managed to save 3 minutes of prep time for their grand rebuttal. Um, this is why you're seeing a lot of pauses in the debate, and they are developing their counter argument to the whole debate in its totality. They're going to summarize everything that has happened, and I hope that you guys stay tuned for this upcoming speech.
How much time? Can we pause the timer because we're back? Can we pause the timer, please? Thank you. And then we can use it later.
You only have 20 seconds left.
We'll use it.
Okay, Team B, whenever you're ready for your 4-minute rebuttal, just begin.
So first of all, our opposing team had no specific. Okay. So our opposing team stated that we are eliminating zero tolerance policy when in reality, according to our plan, we are not. We're just saying that the CPS gives too much funding towards the enforcement and the administration of the code of conduct based on zero tolerance principles, where that money could be used in other places like restorative justice. They also stated that we did not say any statistical evidence on how restorative justice works when we said that, as we stated in our plan, we can use discretionary funds. We're explaining explicitly where we're going to get funds. The CPS has a certain amount of money allocated towards discretionary funds, which can be used to support things like Alternative Inc., which offers trainings for teachers, which offers trainings for staff and students to address conflicts using peace circles and use a more peaceful method to resolving things. And we said that they did a study and they found that 31% of people that didn't participate in these restorative justice programs saw a 31% drop in reports of misconduct and a 50% drop in out-of-school suspensions, which furthermore shows that our plan will work, and our plan is the best because our plan has what we're going to do. And also for their plan, there was no statistical evidence on how their plan is working in West Virginia and how it helps both students and teachers regarding the school to prison pipeline. And they also could not say why it would work in Chicago, Illinois, which is what we're resolving. They also stated that African Americans do not, like a percent of African Americans do not feel safe with police at school. Well, they only make a small portion of the students at the school, which is not a specific representation of kids not feeling safe with police in school. And they also say that they would have funding for mental health officers, which they did not specify where the funding would come, as they stated that it would be more expensive, but they didn't state where they would get funding. And there's also no evidence that minorities are less educated, as they stated, because they have the same education as all the other races that live in that specific area. Thank you. Actually, how much time do I have left, for this speech?
You have a minute and a half.
Dang, okay.
Okay, if that is the end of your speech, then we are going to move on to the end of the debate. We're going to start with Team A. We're going to start with Team B's 1-minute summary speech. And for this, I have a 30-second cue card, so you know whenever your time is halfway done. Team B, whenever you're ready to begin, you may.
Yeah. I believe I'm ready for the. Can I go ahead?
You may begin. Yes.
Okay.
And feel free to
So
turn off your camera if that is going to help your audience.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to wait until I get a consistent start of the speech before I start my time.
Okay, can anyone hear me now? Sorry, I think my network. Okay, so I'm just gonna continue from where I stopped. So I believe this plan is effective and would actually cause some positive changes with academic achievements and would reduce chronic absenteeism. Students and teachers have been badly affected by the zero tolerance policies, and we believe the workings of the policy should definitely be regulated. Thank you.
Okay, Team A, whenever you're ready for your 1 minute.
Our team's resolution stops the school to prison pipeline by ensuring the safety of students. We do this not only by improving student-teacher relationships and trust between them, but also with the lack of police on campus, makes students, especially of color, feel safe at their school. And providing social health workers all benefit the student's ability to succeed and graduate. The solution still keeps police within a distance where they can still act in a situation of emergency and reallocates funds from police to mental health workers so as to not hurt the student's resources or ability to learn. Therefore, our team's resolution best helps students, schools, and is the best way to react to the school to prison pipeline. With our resolution, we are adopting the West Virginia bill, and its intended purpose is to use the same policies to replace police on campus with social workers and behavioral interventionists, which ultimately helps students and prevents the school to prison pipeline. Thank you.
Okay, those are the closing speeches of Team A and Team B. Kahir, how did you want to continue with this? Are we gonna? Okay.
I think that Team A's plan to use the Virginia bill as a model for a response to our attempt to reduce the school to prison pipeline seems to be the more coherently set forth and more persuasive.
Okay, and you're saying that because they have something like an actual bill to replicate?
Right. So they have, sort of a history from which to use in order to determine whether this is going to work or not. If it worked, now the only thing they didn't really raise is why West Virginia, not Chicago, how's the relationship between the two? Are are the communities the same? But and that really wasn't raised. But I think because it's more coherent, more understandable, it seems like it would be a better idea, at least from a debate standpoint. Yes.
Okay, here, before you do so, are we gonna have a sort of discussion about this debate? Or are we just gonna announce the winner and that's the end of it? Okay, I don't know if he's in. Okay, sure, beautiful.
So are you going to announce the decision, or do you want me to? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank everyone for doing this presentation. I congratulate everybody. It's clear that everybody prepared. You knew your materials. Your presentations were very smooth, and overall, a really good job. I've listened to all the arguments. I believe that my decision is very close, but I believe Team A's arguments were more persuasive, and as a result of that, I find in favor of Team A.
Yes, I am very pleasantly surprised. I have not been in a debate like this in a very long time, and it definitely has reignited the passion that I have for this, because it means a lot whenever our youth cares and takes the time out of their day to speak about issues like this and argue respectively. And I think you guys did a great job of arguing. This back and forth, I've seen it gone sideways very quick, and I think everybody was respectful of our ground rules, and it was a very beautiful debate. I would agree with Judge Watson's decision for the same reasons of it being more persuasive and a little bit better structure, because it has an actual model to go off of. I feel like I was lacking a little bit of the stats on our restorative justice training. I didn't really get the specificities, how do you say? The specifics on exactly how that would be implemented and who would be affected by it. Yeah, if you guys are if any of the team leaders, or if anybody is looking for more reasoning, or if they want any comment, please speak up. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. As you can see, the Chicago debate has ended. Thank you guys for all attending. I hope you guys will share your comments on our DYKB pages. Be sure to keep following, subscribing to all of our platforms. We encourage you guys to invite more of your family members, more of your teachers, more of your peers to join and make this debate a bigger broadcast performance. Take care, everybody.